How's it going, guys, and welcome back to BL3's Forgotten, the series where I take a look at underused and not often talked about pieces of gear to determine whether or not they deserve to be remembered within the modern meta of the game or should be left behind and forgotten. And today we are taking a look at the Guardian Angel. If you'd like to get the Guardian Angel for yourself, all you've got to do is open up your inventory and navigate over to Vault Card 1, Fallen Heroes. And using your Vault Card keys, simply claim the Guardian Angel. The Guardian Angel is a legendary Hyperion shotgun, only coming in shock, and able to have 9, 12, or 16 projectiles per shot for 1 ammo cost, or 18, 24, and 32 for 2 ammo cost. The Guardian Angel fires out slow-moving orbs that fly in the shape of a bird, whose wings will flap as it travels, with these orbs being able to bounce off of walls 3 times and dealing splash damage. As well as that, the Guardian Angel has the unique effect of having 500% V2 damage, meaning that it will apply to your guns, skills, grenades, and pretty much everything, with this damage increasing based on how far away the target is from you. Though it does deal splash damage, the Guardian Angel itself cannot be anointed with splash damage anointments. Yes, I know, this is one of the single most meta guns, but I promise I'm not running out of ideas. This is one I've planned to cover from the very start, because while it is genuinely possibly the single most meta weapon in Borderlands 3, I think 99.9% of the time it's used as a swap to amp your damage and not as a gun itself, which is what I'm going to be covering it as in this video. Now, as I listed, there's a lot of projectile variants of this gun, so as usual, we'll just be testing out the highest projectile counts of each ammo cost. This means times 16 for 1 ammo and times 32 for 2. Starting with the times 16, it's incredibly good, though even at max range can feel a little bit lacking, which is kind of surprising, but really just comes down to how many projectiles you're hitting versus how many you're missing. Because of that slow projectile speed and the very odd projectile pattern that actively moves while it flies through the air, you'll often find yourself only hitting a fraction of your total projectiles, making the damage feel very inconsistent. It can and will one-shot an enemy quite often, but just as often you'll find that it can leave enemies just at low HP. It is an amazing weapon still, to be sure, but it can feel a little bit frustrating to use at times. With the times 32, it was honestly pretty hard to tell much of a difference between the two functionally. They felt very similar, with really the only noticeable difference between them being that times 32 was just a little bit more consistent than the times 16 felt. That being said, I do know that the times 13 has a higher damage output, but it's a small enough difference that I could really see an argument for either depending on your build or even just preference between damage versus conserving ammo. Times 16 is a total damage of 112,720, with the times 32 being a total of 150,272. This is like a 33% damage increase for 2 times the ammo cost, so I mean, it is kind of questionable if that damage alone is worth it. Overall, I do think both of these variants are incredibly good though. The Guardian Angel I find gets heavily overlooked as an actual shooter, since most people just grab whatever they pull from their vault card and don't really think much of it other than an incredibly powerful weapon to swap to get 500% V2 damage onto literally anything ever. I wouldn't be surprised if a majority of the people that have ever claimed a Guardian Angel from their vault card have never fired this thing other than accidentally. It also, of course, suffers from the very slow projectile speed, and I've talked a lot about first impressions in this series. When you first fire the Guardian Angel, you will immediately notice just how slow these projectiles are, and to many, that's a huge turnoff, even more so when you try to fire at a moving target and having to do so from a far distance to get the most out of the damage buff. And even if someone were to actually give the Guardian Angel a fair shot, it's very likely that they don't have a super good variant of it. There are 6 different projectile counts, meaning that there is a lot of variation in the Guardian Angel and what it can do. If you don't get a good roll on it, the gun might feel incredibly underwhelming most of the time. Again, leading into that kind of poor first impression to a lot of people. Now, having projectiles that move slowly and actively change their position as they travel through the air, along with a unique effect that buffs your damage based on being far away from a target, having some sort of crowd control in your build can be incredibly helpful for the Guardian Angel when using it as a weapon. Ties that bind is especially nice, since not only does it hold enemies still and can be cast from a distance to get the damage bonus, but that damage bonus being V2 means that it will actually double dip through ties that bind, which means that 500% damage is applying to your actual shot that hits and creates the damage that travels through ties, but then that V2 damage is applied again as it travels through ties. This also means it double dips with Remnant too, for that matter, and also Hollow Point, which all characters have access to. Though, since you have to hit a crit to trigger Hollow Point, either you need good CC to do that consistently, or you just play Flak or Zane to utilize Megavore or Hustler respectively. And for Moe's, Short Fuse is also going to double dip this. There's a reason this gun is so prevalent as a utility. Overall, I think the Guardian Angel is a very powerful weapon itself, despite being a little bit frustrating and difficult to use at times. But I kind of like it. Most of the time, it's not frustrating in a way that makes me actively dislike using it because of how strong it is. It feels really good to land a long distance snipe with these slow ass projectiles because likely the enemy is just going to fucking explode on contact. Like me with your mother last night. Bazinga. It makes her a weapon that, while difficult to use, has an incredibly satisfying and enjoyable payoff to it. But who am I kidding? You still aren't going to use this for anything other than damage buffing Amara's balls. That's gonna about do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, definitely consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, all that. I'll be live right after this video goes up, right here on YouTube and also over my Twitch channel, where there'll be a link to down in the description below, and just below that is a link to my Discord server where you can come and join and hang out. But with that all being said, I hope to see you guys in the next one.